My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
My name is Kathleen Gauden. I am a virtual executive assistant, and my favorite leadership quote is, "For those that say it cannot be done, get out of the way of the person doing it."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
The Leader Assistant podcast is exclusively brought to you by Goody, which provides effortless gifting for all occasions. If you're tired of sending tacky, impersonal business gifts, then you should definitely check out Goody. My friends at Goody offer a collection of hundreds of curated brands like Levain Bakery, Therabody, Milk Bar, and Ember mugs. With Goody, if your recipient doesn't like your gift, they can swap it out for one they do like. You can find perfect gifts for any occasion, whether it's work anniversaries, birthdays, new hire onboarding, or company swag. It's free to start gifting, and you get a $20 credit when you sign up. Also, be sure to mention the Leader Assistant podcast when signing up, and Goody will add an extra $10 credit to your account. So go to leaderassistant.com/goody to disrupt the inefficiencies in your team's gifting strategy. Again, that's leaderassistant.com/goody. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and welcome to episode 164. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/164, leaderassistant.com/164. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with Kathleen Gauden. Kathleen is the owner of the Virtual Assistant and Company. Kathleen, how's it going?
It's going great, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, and where in the world are you?
The beautiful Pacific Northwest, Bend, Oregon.
Very nice. And I think you mentioned that there was some snow in the area. Is that right?
Well, the weather on this side of the Cascades is very interesting. I think last week we had a couple days that were in the 70s and pushing 80, and we were in shorts and working on our garden. And the past couple of days, it's been snowing and blustery and very, very cold. So the weather here changes instantly.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like that's what's been going on around here in Kansas City, Missouri, in the Midwest lately. Today was 88 or something, and then tomorrow is supposed to be 49. So
crazy.
Fun times. Well, let's jump in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and just all about your experience and interest and all that fun stuff in the assistant world, and particularly the virtual assistant world.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So I started my business back in 1999 when I lived in San Diego, California. And what prompted that is I had a very strong corporate executive background, like most of your listeners and yourself, working for high profile, high net worth clients in the corporate world. I did that for many, many years in biotech, Department of Defense, startup. I have different industries I've supported. And as I've heard you say, and others know, our skills are transferable across different industries. So back in 1999, right after I bought my very first house, I decided that I wanted to start a family. And for me, I really wanted to be present during that process for my children. And so I sat there by the pool one day with my laptop and I was brainstorming, like, what could I do? And what am I passionate about? And what do I enjoy? And I kept coming back to, I love being of service. That's what I do. I love being of service. I'm more of the behind the scenes kind of gal. I like supporting other people and taking on a lot of their I'll say, income producing tasks so they can focus on what they're really good at, what they're really passionate about. So as I'm kind of putting together, my vision and working on a vision board, I decided I picked out my audience. Who is my audience? And it was still the same corporate executive type of folks, philanthropists, and in San Diego, during that time, two very well-known communities that executives lived in were Rancho Santa Fe and La Jolla, California. So that was my target audience. And I took out an ad in those two newspapers, little, Village News and such. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And I put an ad in there, personal assistant, virtual assistant, and I was inundated with phone calls. It was crazy. So my business took off. It was during the .com era. And I worked for a lot of people managing large estates in those two areas of San Diego, as well as doing work remotely for them. Things like wedding planning and event coordination, all that type of stuff I was able to do from my home. So that's how I initially got started in the virtual world.
Wow. So you were doing virtual remote work before it was hip and trendy.
Yes. I always like to joke when I'm talking to people and say I've been working virtually way before it was COVID hit and way before it was the cool thing to do. So yes, I have been doing it and loving it for a long time.
Well, okay, then since you are a guru at the remote world, what are your top 2 or 3 tips for assistants listening who are trying to manage a very large estate for their executive or their principal, or maybe just manage a leadership team or a board of directors, all from the comfort of their home?
So I can speak firsthand at that, of course. And what I like to do is have a routine. And my morning routine is kind of my ritual where I go through and do things that start my day. It sparks it. It gets me excited about the day. And I dress, I get up and I go through my routine and I dress the way I would if I was going into an office. It helps me set the tone. It helps me get into a business mindset or frame of mind. And I happen to have and have had for many years, luckily, a designated workspace. And this is kind of my sanctuary. Nobody goes on my computer or my iPhone or my iPad or whatever device I'm working from. And this is my space. When Kathleen goes into your office to work, it's close the door time and focus. And so getting ready just like I would for an office, but I go into my office, my home office instead of going into a corporate office or a small business office. So have a morning routine and have a designated workspace if possible. And also, get up like you're going to work. If you, do your hair and put on makeup and or don't wear makeup, instead of putting on those comfortable yoga pants or, a sweatshirt and T-shirt, I always like to be ready and present in my office, physically, because I never know when I'm going to get asked to hop on Zoom and be visible.
Yeah, those are great tips. So tell us a story or maybe an example of a time when you were asked to do something that required someone to be physically present, and how did you manage that? How did you outsource or delegate, or how did you problem solve a situation where your client says, "Oh no, my something's leaking at the house," and I'm not there, and I'm out of town, or because a lot of times, I know I worked in the same city as my executive for the first 4 years, and my current executive. And it's like, okay, yeah, I lived 10 minutes from his house, so if something came up, I was able to just hop in the car and hop over and, be there to support. But as I've moved 4 hours away on the other side of the state, I've had to learn to have a Rolodex of people that could do those kinds of things. But what's some examples of how you've been able to manage those needs that do require somebody to be present?
So that's a great question, and thank you. As you're asking it, I'm thinking through it. So I do have a couple of assistants that are on my team and then help support me in 2 different locations. Now, that doesn't obviously cover all of 50 states, but when I am speaking to a potential client, I actually find out what their needs are. Are they going to need someone physical at maybe an event? I just organized a corporate retreat in Las Vegas. I don't live in Las Vegas as shared. I'm in Oregon. So I was not able to be there, but I had points of contacts there. And so if or when something came up, I had somebody that my CEO, my client that's a CEO could reach out to that individual and have on point. And for example, another instance was I had a new client in San Diego, and the tech industry, real estate tech industry, reach out to me and said, hey, we just signed up a new client. I'd like to get a bottle of wine delivered to them today. Well, especially with COVID, things take a lot slow. Things are a lot slower. They don't happen instantaneously like they have sometimes in the past. Lucky for me, I, like you, have a Rolodex of individuals that I've worked with, I've talked with, I've mentored, that are associates. That's one of my strengths is networking and having a large network. So I reached out to somebody who had supported me as an assistant, and I asked her, I need you to go to La Jolla. I need to, spend $130 or whatever it was on a bottle of wine, have it delivered to this individual as a thank you. Can you handle that? And she gladly took on the assignment. So for me, not unlike other EAs, even in a workforce, always kind of, I don't want to say being a devil's advocate, but that's what comes to mind. If plan A doesn't work, what's plan B? Always have a backup plan, because you just never know. I never tell my clients, no, I can't do that. I find workarounds. I find solutions to their needs.
That's great. So, just as you're running your own firm and you found this person that was able to deliver the wine, just logistically talk us through, did you say to the client, I can make that happen, but there's going to be an extra fee so that, you could pay this person to run the wine? And how did that work? I know there's several of assistants in my community who have either started their own virtual assistant, remote executive assistant, freelancing gig, or they want to. And, as a logistics person myself, and as most assistants are, always thinking about the details.
Right.
How did that work? Was it hey, I need this there, and you're like, okay, I'll make it happen, but it's going to cost an extra, $200 or whatever?
No, I actually asked what his budget was, and he had shared it with me, and I said, not a problem. Let me see what I can do. And I happen to remember about 20 years ago when my daughter was very little, she had a play date with a little girl, obviously her age, and her parents owned a wine store. That was their business. They're wine connoisseurs. So I reached back, going back 20 years when I met this person, and said, hey, I'm so-and-so. My daughter Natasha played with your daughter. I need a bottle of wine delivered. Here's my budget. Can you make it happen? And he said, we have it. This is, these are the selections I have. This is the pricing. When I reached out to my individual and asked her to do it for me, I particularly took on that cost. I get paid well for what I do, and I'm very grateful for that. And people that work for me enjoy working for me and happy to help me in any way. So the only thing that it cost my client, he gave me a budget, and I said, hey, I think it was $10 more in that price range. And he said, not a problem, which $10, when you're ordering $100 and some dollar bottle of wine is no big deal. So I made it happen, $10 over, totally okay. It was a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, I like how you said, you asked what the budget was. Instead of saying, oh, I'll go do some research and come back, go ahead and get the budget up front.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It takes time. One of my mantras, and I think you're part of this too in the AI community, is working smarter, not harder.
Yep, exactly. Well, awesome. So why do you prefer to work as a freelancer, if you will, versus a full-time employee at with one executive or a couple executives at one organization?
Well, that's another great question. I want to say I've put my dues in. I can remember way back in high school when I was taking some business classes, and I can't remember the teacher's name, but I can see her face, and she was very strict. And it was, learning how to type and learning computers and learning, office skills. And I went, oh, I'm never going to do this. I hate all of this. I was a kid, 17, 18 years old. It's not what I was passionate about. And so, I moved from northern Michigan to California shortly after high school, a couple of years after, and one person turned me on to what was called Manpower. It was a temp agency, and they got me in to a company that was a defense contractor as a temp. And that's how I started my corporate role. And I remember being terrified as I think I was 20, maybe years old. And the company was Computer Sciences Corporation in San Diego. And it was working for the director. And it just intimidated the heck out of me. But I had a very supported group there, and everyone said, we'll teach you what we need to know. They really mentored me. And I was there 6 years. And then I dabbled in some other industries. And then when I started my business, I guess you can say I had corporate burnout. Entrepreneurship runs in my family. I have a couple of brothers and a sister that are older than me that started their own business. So it's in my blood. And I start blazing. I start thinking, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And it kept going to, as I shared earlier on, being of service. And I found that I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to make my own schedule. I want to be of service to others. I want to sell myself. And I enjoyed and I'm grateful for all the wonderful people and mentors and friends I've made working in corporate areas, but I just got really burnt out on that. And I love working from home. It's a totally different world. It's not for everybody. It just fits my personality. I like being my own boss. I guess that's part of it. It's not that I don't appreciate or I have a challenge with somebody telling me what to do, because my clients do share their needs with me. But it gives me more sense of, I don't want to say control, but more freedom. I get to do what I want, when I want, and kind of how I want. I'm very selective of any virtual assistants that work on my team. I'm very selective of clients who want to hire me. I would say, and I don't mean this in an arrogant or disrespectful way, but probably about 50% of the clients that I speak with, they're not a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. And I let them know, I appreciate your interest in my services, but it's not a good fit. So I get to pick who I want to work with. I get to pick my team. And for me, that's exciting. Very challenging, but exciting.
Yeah, that's great. So there's a lot of people listening right now that heard what you just said over the last 60 seconds, and they thought, oh, that's me. That's what I want. That's what I want. And I know you do a lot of coaching for virtual assistants. So the two kind of most popular questions, I'm sure you get these hundreds of times as well, but the two questions are, one, how do I get clients? And then two, how much do I charge? And how do I figure out charging? So would you just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do with the coaching VAs, and then maybe try to answer those two questions?
Yes. So my coaching business is more of a boutique coaching. I like doing one-on-one with my VAs. And, people say, well, there's all kinds of coaches out there. There are. So do your homework. And the way that I like to present myself is I say, think of me as a spiritual lifestyle coach meets a virtual assistant coach. I'm kind of a blend of both of those. I don't just talk about how to be a VA and how to transfer your EA, admin, personal assistant skills, project management, chief of staff, whatever, into a virtual assistant. We kind of talk about a little bit of everything because that's what I'm about. For me, it's a lifestyle change. It's not just, hey, I collect my paycheck or my monthly retainer and go about my business. For me, not for everybody, if you want to be successful, you really have to dial into what your passion is. What are you excited about? What do you not want to do? And so, as my husband, Anthony, always likes to say, does it bring you joy? And if you're talking with a client, and I'll get around to how do we find those clients, but if you're talking to a client and you're getting excited and you like the work that they're doing and you're liking what you're hearing and they're responsive and they're, they answer, it's a two-way street. They want you as the VA to respond quickly and be on point. I want my clients to offer that to me. In order for me to help you, sometimes you, the client, have to help me. It's a relationship. So I dial in with my VAs. I find out, what do they really like to do? Well, for me, I'll give you an example. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love working with startup businesses and sole entrepreneurs. Those are people that are going a mile a minute, start serial entrepreneurs, startup business. It's a different animal, but that's what excites me. I love that. A lot of the startups don't make it, and I know that. It's a big risk, but it's fun for me. What do I not like? If somebody comes to me and says, I'm looking for a full charge bookkeeper in QuickBooks online, that doesn't bring me joy. I don't like that. I don't want to do that for a client. If somebody says, I want a bookkeeper, somebody that does CEO, somebody that can work on my website, again, not me. I have no interest in that. It does not bring me joy. So when I work with someone in coaching, we talk about, what do you really like to do? I give you some assignments. What do you really not like to do? Because what you don't want to do, and I've learned this the hard way, is say, yeah, sure, I'll do your payroll. I can do that. I can figure it out. And then find out, you know what? I don't like payroll. It's not fun for me. That's not my passion. So we talk about that. And then we talk about dialing in your resume. We talk about LinkedIn. Those are two very, very important tools that I use. And I send my resume out occasionally, but getting LinkedIn really dialed in. And I worked with somebody that was an expert with LinkedIn when I worked at Brian Tracy International. And he really taught me the right way to set up the LinkedIn for my business and for myself, right? And so those are two very important tools. Where do I look for work? There's a lot of online platforms. LinkedIn, I trust, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And there are things such as remote.io, remote.co, there's Upwork, and there's many others that I share with my VAs during a coaching session that they can get acquainted with and they can look at. But the one thing that I want to caution, even on LinkedIn, there are scams. Sometimes if it's too good to be true, sometimes it is. And I even had an experience when I was on LinkedIn this year where I applied for something that sounded really good. And I had a little bit of a red flag, a reservation, like, I don't know. Come to find out it was a scam. Somebody was representing themselves saying they worked for a certain company and they did not. So I caution you with those online platforms. I have people that reach out to me all the time with my through LinkedIn and my website, checking on my services and setting up appointments. So again, those are things I would talk to, with a VA to, what is your budget? It's the same thing I would ask a client, are we ready to talk about websites? No, let's get, let's take some free platforms first, LinkedIn, and let's learn how to build that out. And then we can dial in that, based on resume and getting endorsements, a lot of endorsements, and really building that network. The second question that you asked me was, how do I price myself? Well, that's also a very good question that's going to take some research. And it's going to take you, at least it took me, if somebody listening is going, well, how do I figure that out? It's going to take, I want to say, a little bit of soul searching. What are you worth? What's going to make you happy? And doing some homework. The virtual world is a little bit different than an executive assistant that lives in California, right? Going to the office. I know what that salary is. So that's easy. So I know how to navigate those waters. Or if somebody is in Michigan from my home state, that's a different salary if you're going into an office. But when you're a virtual assistant, and this is very important to keep in mind, you are, I'll just say, competing with everybody all over the world. So you have people that could be in the Midwest, New York, maybe even offshore. So there's different price ranges. So I would encourage, and I do, the VAs that I coach is let's find out what your skill set is. And we drill down, what are you an expert in? What are you an intermediate in? What are you maybe not so good in? And finding your niche is important as well. So again, some homework and some research will help dial in that salary, because we don't want to overprice ourselves, right? Because when I'm applying for a position, let's say for a client on Upwork, I can see what other people are bidding. So some platforms allow you that luxury. So if a client's, and again, I'm referring to Upwork, if a client's budget is maybe, I don't know, $25 to, let's say, $55. Do you want to, place yourself at $55 or $60 an hour? Maybe if you're worth it, but it depends on that client. Again, it's value. What are you worth? If that client wants the cheapest person, I'm not that person, because I've worked very hard at my skill set.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like Siri was in the background, speaking of virtual assistants, wanting to get in on this. So that was pretty funny. Good timing.
Yeah. Siri always has an opinion. Even when I don't want one, she's always given it to me. So I thank her and take what I need and leave the rest.
Nice. Awesome, Kathleen. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit of your story and insight. As we kind of close things up on this episode, 164, again, show notes are at leaderassistant.com/164, leaderassistant.com/164, and I will put all of the links to Kathleen's resources and social media and website and all that. But if there's one place, Kathleen, that you would like people to go to find out more about you, where would that be?
I would like you to visit my website, thevirtualassistantandcompany.com. I took a lot of time, money, and energy into that site, because one thing that I really want to be very transparent about is I want you to see who I am. I am not a VA coach for everybody. I am not a virtual assistant for everybody. I have a certain type of vibe and personality, and you'll either really like me or, find somebody that you really resonate with. So I hope you'll stop at that site and take a look and shoot me an email, sign up for my newsletter. I will be giving away, Jeremy, I wanted to mention a free 1-hour VA coaching call for anybody that is listening to this wonderful podcast that you have put together. You have many great people that you interview, so thank you for that. But if anybody is listening and goes to my site and signs up, I will be picking someone from the list and offering them a 60-minute free VA coaching call.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'll have to sign up for that myself. Awesome, Kathleen. Well, enjoy the crazy weather. Good luck with your business. There's actually one more question I was going to ask. How many assistants do you have or VAs do you have working with you on average in your team?
Usually about 2 to 3. I keep it pretty low key. I'm not looking to go huge or big. Again, I'm very boutique and very specific on who I want to work with in my business, as well as the clients I attract. I will say that in the next probably, I will say 3, maybe 6 months, somewhere in that period, I will be looking for another 1 to 2 part-time virtual assistants.
I will share all those links in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/164. And yeah, thanks again for being on the show. And hopefully we can meet in person someday.
I hope so too. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com